Good morning, everyone. My name is Andile Mkhabela, and the co-author is Tendani Lavengwa, and we're from Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa. The topic of our research is an exploration of decision-making for cloud computing in South Africa. An outline on what the presentation will cover is the motivation and problem area that help carry out the research, the research objective on what we want to achieve at the end of the research, the research approach and methodology that was used to carry out the research, and also going to discuss the results and conclusions of the research. The motivation behind the study is that cloud computing is an evolving technology. Organizations have to consider how they operate and consider using cloud systems. Organizations need to push to be agile and to respond quickly to changes. And with traditional method, this is not possible. Cloud computing is a solution to deliver on-demand information technology solutions. The main concerns about cloud computing is that it has not been fully identified. Due to cloud computing evolving, decision makers are cautious towards adopting cloud computing, and they're not entirely open about this. And therefore, anyone who wants to make important decisions about cloud computing knows the truth that cloud computing makes your life easier, but having to choose the right services is not easy. Products are hard to compare as products are constantly changing. Small pricing details can lead to big costs. Therefore, decision makers need to determine which cloud solution is suitable for their organizations. And if they don't do so, or if they don't consider the main important processes, then this may lead to decision mistakes and also lead to costly mistakes. The research objectives of the research are to explore the decision-making processes for cloud computing in South Africa, to use the decision-making processes proposed by Herbert Simon 1977 as a lens in the exploration, to propose a cloud computing decision-making process map. The research approach and methodology that was used is that we reviewed studies that empirically investigated the main factors and processes that could be considered when choosing to adopt cloud computing technology. We also reviewed papers that aimed at reviewing the most recent researches in cloud computing decision-making. This paper used a qualitative approach focusing on meaning rather than frequencies. This was also a comparative and exploratory approach where the problem required an improved understanding in order to compare and classify existing decision-making processes across various countries. By doing so, this enabled analysis of various decision-making processes in complicated situations, which help in understanding and also explaining how cloud computing links information technology goals and strategies of the organizations. Literature review articles have been utilized to bring together information collected on the selected topic. The main focus of the study was South African context. A survey by Writer 2019 showed a better understanding of South African cloud market and the adoption of business market cloud services. The study showed that 77% of companies were using cloud services, 31% were using telecom services, 71% were using cloud as a backup. And they also discussed the mostly used cloud providers were Microsoft, Azure, and Google. There's a study by Gartner that shows the adoption of cloud computing software has increased by 11.4%. Cloud computing provides many benefits to businesses, where businesses are turning to cloud services. According to Corey 2020, he stated that cloud computing has been long cited as achieving various business benefits, such as reduced information technology costs, improved service levels, quicker speed to market, cloud as an enabler for digital business. And there's also a study by Wukunuma and Staff 2011, which also stated that cloud computing business benefits may include technological infrastructure access, shared resources, electronic collaboration, easy data storage, delivery, and accessibility. The adoption of cloud computing will keep rising in South Africa, as it is considered one of the quickest growing countries worldwide on information technology. The decision factors such as technology, organization, environment, business, and human factors show that they help improve the adoption of cloud computing. These decision factors supported decision makers in identifying and recognizing any concerns regarding the decision towards cloud computing. The decision-making approaches of organizations to adopt cloud computing must be carefully considered. There's a number of approaches that offer understanding in the processes where decision makers reach their decisions, which is the rational approach, the behavioral approach, the practical approach, and the personal approach. Decision-making processes involves finding and selecting decisions aligned with the principles and preferences of decision makers. Morgan 2017-19 discussed 4 critical steps of decision-making processes, whereby the first step is you have to structure the decision problem, whereby you have to generate the proposed alternatives and specify the objective and attributes. The second step, where you have to assess possible impact of alternatives. Then from that, you have to determine the magnitude and likelihood of impact proposed by the alternatives. Step 3, you have to determine the preference of decision makers. You have to structure and quantify values of decision makers. The last step, which is step 4, you have to evaluate and compare the alternatives. You have to evaluate the proposed alternatives and conduct sensitivity analysis. Herbert Simon, 1997, proposed a decision-making processes to help decision makers to better make decisions. These processes can assist decision makers in recognizing and identifying any issues that may obstruct the decision towards cloud computing. He also later revealed that humans go through essential stages in the processes of solving a problem. His model described 4 stages of decision-making processes, namely the intelligence phase, the design phase, the choice phase, and also the implementation of solution phase. From that, we came across with our own adaptation of the decision process map, where we discussed the 4 stages of the decision-making processes, where on the first step, which is the intelligence phase, the decision makers need to examine the organization by identifying cloud computing essentials. They also need to compare deployment models. They have to review service models. They have to input data driven from the decision support system sources. On the design phase, the decision makers need to define and build a model which symbolizes a system. They need to do so by running simulations on the service providers platform. They have to perform service tests on cloud services. They have to input internal data by other cloud users. They have to add information security components. The first step, which is the choice phase, where after choosing the best solution, the decision makers need to review the result from each design. They have to conduct evaluations on the design options, and they also need to recommend the decision for implementations. The last one, which is the implementation stage, that's when after a successful implementation of the solution, the decision makers need to deploy or roll out the cloud computing service selected, and they also need to activate cloud computing monitoring services. From this, we came to a conclusion that decision-making process map will automate decision-making by minimizing the amount of work on decision makers when deciding to adopt cloud computing. Our decision-making process map will also be useful in helping support decision makers to strategically utilize cloud computing in a direct and unified manner. This will help in information gathering, identifying and solving problems when decisions need to be made. By understanding the cloud computing implementation in organizations, decision makers will understand the main concerns of decision factors and also the decision-making processes. The recommendation for future work is to develop a study that involves other regions to assess the decision-making factors and processes. We also trust that this will serve as a basis for future qualitative and quantitative research that can be undertaken to confirm and extend to our study. The end, and thank you for your time. So since this is since this paper is part of an ongoing study, we will take questions and suggestions. We're also looking forward to collaborating with fellow colleagues on this topic. Thank you.